Hello everyone, welcome to this video about the discussion of Karukku, a novel written by South Indian author Bama. We know that literature is a way of reflecting the things happening in a society. A writer living in a social milieu makes an attempt to represent the society through writing. The writer here does two functions. One is of reflecting the things. At the same time, a writer also makes a corrective function of correcting the things happening in a society. It's, as the saying says, pen is mightier than sword, an attempt sometimes to fight against the evils, loopholes, weaknesses in society also. Here is a text that deals with such kind of things along with giving us personal experiences, the childhood memories, and the vagaries of society to which the author got exposed. The text is none but the famous Bama's Karukku. It is actually originally written in Tamil. Later on, it was translated into English by Lakshmi Holmstrom under Oxford India Paperbacks Publications, Oxford University Press Publications. Today, we are going to have a discussion of the novel Karukku, and in fact, we are going to deal with the novel Karukku in a series of videos that follow this particular discussion. I welcome you all to the series of discussion of Bama's novel Karukku. Friends, the novel Karukku is also a text prescribed for the paper Compulsory Foundation course in English in Bangalore University for the stream BCA and BSc. It is to be studied in the fourth semester BCA and BSc. So in this particular video, therefore, I focus on Bama's Karukku and Intrduction. Here, I attempt to discuss the author, her background, and particularly her work Karukku and the major preoccupations that the author had to go into the writing of the famous Karukku. Okay, so let's see about the author, that is the information which is relevant to us to the discussion of this novel. About the author, Bama is the pen name of Faustina Mary Fatima Rani. She is the first Tamil Dalit woman writer. Dear viewers, I would like to attract you to this phrase Tamil Dalit woman writer, and also the first one. See, Tamil, right, when it comes to this, we observe it's a regional or a reflection on the representation of a region of Tamil Nadu on the one hand. Dalit, it's a broad category. It's a voice from the broad section of our country, that is Dalit, and it's a women voice too. Thus, the novel is the first response from any writer who belonged to Tamil Dalit women. Therefore, she is considered as the first Tamil Dalit woman writer after the publication of her first work, Karukku, in the year 1992. Bama was born in 1958 in a Roman Catholic family from Patupatti in Tamil Nadu. Her ancestors belonged to a Dalit community called Parayars. Look at the word Parayars. It has etymology of the word Parai. The word Parai in Tamil means drum, which means the community Parayars were actually drummers. They used to beat drums during auspicious occasions or events, maybe a religious procession, or even such gatherings at temple, churches, and all that. So therefore, they belong to a community of drummers. But in course of time, when we come to the Bama's grandfather's generation, he had converted into Christianity, and then uh, the, they followed the religion of Roman Catholic sect of Christianity. Then when we come to their profession, particularly Bama's community were agricultural laborers. They would work, and they are working, of course, they are working in the fields belong to the landowning community in the area named the Naikars. When come to Bama's parents, her father is Susai Raj. He was an employee of Indian Army, and her mother's name is Sebastiana. She was a woman who worked for the upper caste Naikars. You see one aspect here that is important. Her father was an employee of Indian Army, which means an employee of Indian Army cannot be always at home, and of course a mother who brought up the children cannot get all the time support from her husband who belonged to Indian Army or military. And of course, naturally, here you observe Sebastiana had suffered or had a tough experience of bringing up her children in the absence of her husband Susai Raj, who had to work outside his place as he belonged to Indian Army. That's the background we can understand from her biographical information. When we move on to the next slide, you see she had a brother named Raj Gautam. He was a famous Dalit writer too. It's important to mention again his name here because what Bama is, somewhere as she states in the novel, uh, is influenced by Raj Gautaman also. In her early childhood itself, he influenced her and he, in fact, boosted her. I can also use the word catapult, right? Boosted her to a progressive, uh, find a progressive life. She had her early schooling in her village, in a village school itself, and then she went to high school in a neighboring town. So therefore you observe staying at her home, she was able to complete her village school. And then as she joined her high school, which was in a neighboring town, she had to stay away from her home, somewhere staying in a hostel. The experience at home as well as the experience at the hostel would make her rich to become a writer in life. And after her graduation, we see she served as a nun for 7 years in a convent at a Roman Catholic church. That was a profession, rather I can say, a service chosen by Bama with an intention of doing some service to the people who are in distress, particularly her community men who are everyday sufferers of the crookedness or the vagaries presented in that society. Then we come to the next stage of her life. What followed her service at the church as a nun was disappointment. In her life also, in her childhood or even in her high school days, she experienced a lot of discrimination, so many aspects of inequality and oppression, and she thought her education or the completion of education and her life choosing nun or her life as a nun would probably put an end to all this. But to her dismay, it did not happen so. She got disappointed and frustrated by the prevailing discriminations against the Dalits in the church. She mentions so many instances where Dalit Christians were treated somewhat inferior to the upper class, rather, I can say the mainstream Christians. So, like at every stage of her life, she was wounded. As she herself mentions in the preface to Karukku, she had a wounded self. She is a bird who lost her freedom, but as she mentions, it is writing that gave wings to that caged bird Bama. Therefore, she took to writing as a way to heal her wounded self. Friends, I have an interesting interview of Bama by Geeta Hariharan for Indian Cultural Forum. It was made for Indian Cultural Forum. Let's just have a glance at that. Probably I'll provide you the link. Yeah, it is provided in the reference as well as available in the description below. Look at the video where Bama says her opinion. We will go
And
to.
what led you to write the autobiography? Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, it was in 92. You know that I entered a convent to become a nun in 80, in 85. Then I stayed there for 7 years, but I was not able to continue there because of the caste discrimination prevailed in the
You'd
convent.
actually joined the convent hoping to serve the Dalit
Yeah,
community.
because I was a teacher outside. I worked for 7 years. Then I resigned and went. I had a motive of teaching and giving awareness to Dalit girls. I chose that life because I knew that it has power and it has a lot of privileges also to meet and talk to girls, young girls. So with that hope, I entered the convent, but that was not materialized because I was all the time asked to teach only English and mathematics, and so my dream was not materialized there. So I decided to come out. So in 92, I came out. That was the time I suffered the most in my life actually because no job, no place to go to, no money, no food. I mean, even for next day meal, I used to worry who will provide. Like,
Yes, friends, you see, her own words can indicate how wounded she was in her life. Friends, any fallen rock or stone cannot get the shape of a beautiful statue or idol unless it receives that many hammer strokes. Yes, friends, that we can see here in the case of Bama, her life experience, her struggles, her sufferings, and the way she was oppressed in life by wherever she goes, molded a writer in Bama. That not just an ordinary writer, but with the publication of her 1992's work, Karukku, she made a worldwide acclaim or worldwide popularity. Yes, that is the significance of studying Karukku. It's a work that not just deals with her personal experience, but it's a voice of a whole community which is underprivileged, which has been underprivileged and relegated, oppressed for ages. Yeah, because of this significance, let us take up that work as a discussion relevant to the Indian context, as a text of awakening the darker side of humanity where there is no room for such oppressed, underprivileged, the people who are in difficulty. Yes, let's move ahead. So let's look at the works of Bama. Yeah, as I told you, Karukku, written in 1992, is the first work. It's an autobiography. Yes, well, what's autobiography? An autobiography is a life history of a person written by himself or herself, which means the personal experiences of a writer turn up as the different events throughout the autobiography. Unlike any fictitious or imaginary text, autobiography is something which is very true to oneself. If you want to explore or study about somebody, the best thing you can do is to study the autobiography. Yes, Karukku is an autobiography of Bama. It's an embodiment of her childhood experience. It's an embodiment of Tamil Dalit Christian woman's experience. So, the novel provides us an exposure to the things happening in the life of a woman who experienced on the one hand as a Tamil woman, on the other hand as a Dalit woman, and again as a Christian woman, as Bama herself says. It's an experience of class, caste, and also women or gender discrimination. A three-way discrimination was meted out to a person like Bama. Therefore, reading a text like Karukku is a kind of dealing with such an experience which everybody has to know. So the next work was Sangati, that was published in 1994. Sangati was a novel about Dalits' human experience again, and their exposure to three-way oppression. Yeah, as I told you, it is caste, class, and gender, as Bama mentions. And in Sangati, or even in Vanam, or even in Karukku, she also makes an attempt to bring some kind of identity to the Dalits. They had their own culture, their own. The Indian Dalits have their own system of living, but to different reasons, for different reasons, those things are not highlighted or not brought to the mainstream. So writing a book on them or representing the voice of the Dalits is an attempt to bring that to mainstream. So Vanam again is a novel about intercaste divisions among Dalits, and particularly she focuses here how these intercaste divisions or disputes lead them to impediment. It creates an impediment in Dalit uprising, an obstacle to cross. And then again she wrote Kisambukaran or Avartatvam Erumayam or Kondatam, the other short stories voicing out the underprivileged Dalits in India, particularly in Tamil Nadu. Yeah, thus Bama is a rich writer to read. Yeah, next we see Karukku is the first autobiography by any Tamil Dalit Christian woman, as I already told you, and it is the first work of Bama also. It makes a lot of creative things. The novel published was translated into English by Lakshmi Holmstrom in 2000, and it won Crossword Book Award prize in 2000, in the year 2000. The very event of winning a prize brought a worldwide acclaim, a lot of popularity for Bama, and in fact it provided her a lot of strength to go ahead in writing. And Geeta Hariharan, the one who interviewed Bama, says it's a milestone in Dalit feminist literature. See, sometimes you see some people, due to many reasons, cannot raise their voice at all. It may be because of the dominance of somebody on them, or maybe due to illiteration, unable to express their waves as they are illiterate, or it may be due to the very societal taboos on writing, for any reasons. Therefore, Bama makes an attempt to raise her voice here, and it becomes the representative text of Dalit women also. Therefore, a very milestone in the Dalit feminist literature. For Bama, this Karukku is a comfort to relieve the pain of those who are wounded by caste discrimination. It's a kind of relief to the untouchability, concept of untouchability, poverty and destitution. Bama herself says she finds a kind of comfort. She would like to offer a comfort to her people who are sufferers for ages, who have been suffered for ages. It's a means to strengthen the identities of Dalits. And she considered that identity of the Dalits was destroyed and they were given no identity at all. That means they were denied of identity too. That's why Bama considers the very work Karukku is an attempt to uh, give identity to the Dalits as well. So when we come to this, we know that emerging genre of literature in India is Dalit literature. The word Dalit is familiar to you, and Dalit literature is a literature of the group who have been broken by caste-based oppressions for ages, and now they are trying literature as a means to find their identity also. Therefore, it's a literature of the underprivileged, marginalized sections of our society. And what counts, as many of critics as well as Dalit writers themselves say, is that aesthetic experience. If somebody else who is not a Dalit writes on Dalits, that's an outsider's experience. But being a Dalit, if somebody writes, that's the experienced writing. That means they have experienced it in life and wrote it. And that voice holds significance. That voice really provides an identity to the Dalits. Thus, the novel Karukku is one such text which attempts to give identity to the Dalits. When come to the word Karukku, the title of the novel, it means Palmyra leaves. So with their saw edge, they look like a double-edged sword. As a pun, the word karu means embryo or seed. It also means freshness or newness. Look at that symbol used by Bama. She says, she takes up that phrase from the Epistle to Hebrew New Testament. There, the phrase word of God is used. It is mentioned that the word of God is a two-edged sword. But Bama takes that to say, though it is a two-edged sword, it no longer steers the hardened hearts of the many who have sought their happiness by enslaving and disempowering others. The two-edged sword is not working in that sense, probably. Therefore, she considers writing as a kind of medium where one can fight against all those differences. And again, you see, it's a karu is a pun used in another sense. A pun is a word that has dual meaning, dual significance, that gives us two meanings. Say, for example, if you say life depends on liver, that has two meanings. Life, on the one hand, depends upon the one who lives his life, that is liver. Again, life depends on the liver in your body, right? Liver has two meaning here. It's a pun. Similarly, the word karu is a pun also. On the one hand, Karukku means Palmyra leaves, which has that saw-edged, double-edged sword. It's similar to double-edged sword. On the other hand, it's an embryo or seed. That means embryo or seed is a fresh one, right? A seed is a fresh one. An embryo, the bruna, that's a fresh one, right? It has got freshness, newness. Something new that is going to be presented here. When you look at that work, of course it's a new. As we saw in the beginning, it's the first Dalit Christian woman's writing. Therefore, it's something new also. Anyhow, we see Next aspect here is that it presents the structure of the novel. It presents events of Bama's life in 9 chapters. They are not presented in a chronological way, one after another, childhood first, college life next, or even middle age, like that. It isn't presented in what we say William Shakespeare's concept of 7 ages of man. It's not in that level. It is in a creative way where she focuses on different elements or incidents. They are woven together as per her choice. A lot of flexibility or poetic license is used as per that chapterization is considered. So the 9 chapters present, they reflect on different themes, maybe her work, her games, and her recreation, or their men's recreation, their recreation, education, belief, and so on. So, giving importance to these different concepts, the chapters are divided and they give us different aspects of their community. And another thing of reading Karukku, it becomes clear that a kind of personal crisis in her life led to, or it watershed the author's life to make a sense of her life as a Catholic Dalit, a Dalit woman. The three different sphere of experience, the personal crisis she felt there made a writer in her. As a Christian nun, she wanted to elevate the sufferings of her men, as I already told you in the beginning, as she mentions you in the video. And again, as a woman, she wanted to give the voice to the suppressed, oppressed women of her community. And again, as a Dalit, she wants to construct that kind of representation needed for Dalits in literature. So thus we find the differences in perspectives of the church that initially led to her resentment with the convent, and that also leads to her, wound of the wounded self, lead to the concept of wounded self here. But for Bama, as I mentioned earlier, as she says in the preface, it's a bird. She was a bird with wings cut once upon a time, but now that bird with wings cut become a bird with free flight after the publication of Karukku. It was not a easy journey or easy way. She had difficulties after the publication of Karukku because her own community men, as she mentions in that video, were not supportive to her. They were not happy with the publication of a work about them. But later, they realized and they applauded her for such an attempt. And the world applauded Bama for such an attempt. Well, so we can make a conclusion here that Karukku presents Bama's life, the journey she traveled, the turns she took, and the struggle she underwent. True. And it is also clear that her personal life, the suffering she underwent, it watershed in her life and molded a writer in her. Thus, Karukku is the best document of her life as well as a voice of the Dalits in India against the oppression of them. Let's make a journey of the reading Karukku in the following videos. I welcome you all to the series of videos that I'm going to make on the novel Karukku. Thank you for watching. See you.